Crimson Desert has just received a brand new update, and there's actually quite a lot to cover. We have the brand new patch 1.17 notes, plus the developers recently took part in an unofficial Q&A session with fans. While it wasn't an official interview, the answers they gave were genuinely interesting. They were asked whether we could eventually see first-person combat, first-person finishers, and even the return of armor set bonuses. Some of the responses were genuinely surprising. So, we've got plenty to discuss. First of all, let's start with patch 1.77. The update fixes a number of issues that players have been reporting over the past few weeks. One of the biggest fixes addresses a problem where progress towards the Desperate Rescue Challenge wasn't being counted correctly. Thankfully, that's now been resolved. Another welcome fix deals with an issue where an unattended item could automatically be assigned to a quick slot after all of the assigned food had been consumed. This was something that many players had been complaining about. The developers also fixed a bug where the unique effects of certain special headgear failed to activate properly in specific situations. If you've been using those items, you'll hopefully notice that they're now working as intended. Under the combat and action section of the patch notes, there's another fix that I'm personally very happy to see. The developers addressed an issue where footstep sounds could overlap or character animations could stutter while the player was moving. Now, this might sound like a minor bug, but honestly, it was surprisingly annoying. There were so many moments where I genuinely thought an enemy was sneaking up behind me, because I kept hearing extra footsteps. I'd stop, look around, and realize it was simply an audio bug. It completely broke the immersion at times, so I'm really glad they finally fixed it. The patch also fixes an issue where icons for unobtainable treasure chests would incorrectly appear on the map. On top of that, trade routes that were previously displayed incorrectly have also been corrected. Overall, it's not the biggest update we've ever seen, but it's a solid quality of life patch that clears up several frustrating issues. If you haven't downloaded patch 1.17 yet, it's available right now, so definitely check it out for yourself. However, there is one thing noticeably missing from this update, and that's any new story content. A lot of players were hoping we'd get information about the upcoming story expansion, but unfortunately there's nothing here. Hopefully Pearl Abyss has been saving those announcements for Gamescom because that would be the perfect place to reveal what's coming next. Now, let's move on to the main topic of today's video, and that's the unofficial developer Q&A. This conversation was originally translated from Chinese after players attending a community event asked the developers a huge number of questions. The interview itself was incredibly long, covering everything from development to future content. Some of the questions weren't particularly interesting, but a handful of them revealed some genuinely exciting information, so let's focus on those. One of the first questions asked was about the size of the development team. Players wanted to know whether around 60 or 100 developers were currently working on Crimson Desert. The developers' response was actually pretty surprising. According to them, the team is significantly larger than that. They explained that the development team isn't much smaller than it was before launch, meaning Pearl Abyss still has a very large number of developers actively supporting the game. Even more importantly, they confirmed that the team is now fully focused on future story updates as well as large paid DLC expansions. To me, that's excellent news. A lot of studios reduced their teams dramatically after launch, but it sounds like Pearl Abyss is continuing to invest heavily in Crimson Desert's future, which is exactly what you want to hear if you're planning to stick with the game for years to come. Now, one of the biggest questions during the Q&A was whether Crimson Desert could eventually receive a first-person mode. The developer didn't give a definite yes, but they also didn't rule it out. Instead, they said it's absolutely possible. According to them, Pearl Abyss has received a surprising amount of feedback, especially from Western players, requesting first-person combat. It's apparently one of the most common features players have been asking for, and it's something the team is actively considering. Honestly, I didn't expect that answer. I thought they would simply say there were no plans for it, but instead they admitted it's something they're discussing internally. Now imagine exploring the world, fighting bosses, or even clearing dungeons entirely from a first-person perspective. It could completely change the feel of the combat. The really interesting part is that players also asked whether first-person finishers could be added in the future. While the developers didn't confirm anything, they certainly didn't dismiss the idea either. So it definitely feels like the door is still open. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Would you actually like to see a first-person mode in Crimson Desert, or do you think the game should remain purely third-person? Personally, I'd love to at least have the option. Another really interesting question involved armor and equipment. Players asked whether armor originally had more unique stats and set bonuses during development. The developer answered yes. Apparently, earlier versions of Crimson Desert featured much more complex equipment systems, including unique attributes and full armor set bonuses. However, many of those systems were either simplified or completely removed before launch. Now this is where things get really interesting. Because if those systems already existed during development, that means Pearl Abyss isn't starting from scratch. Those mechanics have already been designed before. They're essentially sitting on a goldmine of unused content that could easily be brought back through future updates or DLC. Personally, I'd absolutely love to see armor sets return. Imagine earning powerful legendary sets by completing high-level dungeons, defeating world bosses, or finishing difficult endgame activities. It would add another layer of progression and give players even more reasons to continue grinding after finishing the main story. And yes, I'm gonna keep mentioning dungeons because I genuinely think they'd be perfect for this kind of reward system. Another important question focused on the game's characters and storyline. Some players felt that certain characters, bosses, and story arcs ended rather abruptly or lacked proper context. The developers acknowledged that feedback and reportedly took detailed notes. They didn't promise immediate changes, but the important thing is that they're listening. This becomes even more interesting because Pearl Abyss has already officially stated that improving Crimson Desert's story is one of its major post-launch priorities. The goal isn't necessarily to rewrite the entire campaign. Instead, they want to improve the overall pacing, expand the lore, and give secondary characters and important events much more depth. That means some of the storylines that currently feel unfinished could eventually receive additional scenes, dialogue, or even entirely new quest lines. The same could apply to several bosses throughout the game. Some of them feel incredibly important, yet disappear from the narrative rather quickly. Hopefully, future updates give those characters the development they deserve. Overall, I think this Q&A paints a very positive picture of Crimson Desert's future. The development team remains large, story updates are actively being worked on, major DLC is planned, first-person gameplay is being considered, and previously removed gameplay systems like armor set bonuses could potentially make a return. Of course, nothing here should be treated as an official announcement until Pearl Abyss confirms it themselves, but it's still fascinating to hear what the developers are thinking behind the scenes. With Gamescom just around the corner, I'm really hoping we finally get our first proper look at the upcoming story update, new content, and maybe even a roadmap for what's coming over the next year. But now I want to hear from you. What do you think about everything discussed in today's video? Would you like to see first-person combat? Should armor set bonuses return? And what feature are you hoping Pearl Abyss adds next? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss any future Crimson Desert news and updates. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.